Welcome to Whatcha Makin, a podcast about sharing ideas, discussing the business of making, and connecting with the maker community. Your hosts are Alex Adams, an engineer turned furniture maker of Type A Furniture, and an alien pretending to be a DIY craftsman, Alex Duffey of Duffey Woodcraft. This is Whatcha Makin.
Hello, makers, and welcome to Whatcha Makin, a podcast where we talk all about our current projects, spotlight makers throughout the community, and remind you that chainsaws were first invented for childbirth. They were developed in Scotland in the late 18th century to help aid and speed up the process of widening the pubic cartilage area.
Birth canal.
Yep. And it wasn't until the start of the 20th century that we made them a little bit bigger and started using them for wood cutting. So this week, our main discussion is all about kids in the shop. I'm Alex Duffey, and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Duffey Woodcraft and as an instructor over at cncwithme.com.
I didn't realize that's where you were going to go with that. And
Yep. How you doing, Alex?
Oh my god. So I'm Alex at Type A Furniture. And my mom is actually a retired nurse who used to help with delivering babies, so I guess that's kind of adjacent to what you were covering there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Do you know what's also adjacent to what we're covering?
D's?
No, our patrons.
I don't know if they want to be adjacent to that.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, if you liked that, then you'll probably like going to patreon.com/whatchamakinshow to get more of this chaos. You can go through and find all of the various tiers that we have there and see what kind of benefits work for you. I think we've got our quarterly call coming up here.
Yep, in October, date TBD. We'll get that scheduled and sent out to everybody.
Right.
And the first 5 patrons will be getting their maker pieces very soon. I got them designed, and I'm getting them made tomorrow, and they'll be sent out. So I'll tell you all about that once they're done.
This event will be a BYOC, bring your own chainsaw of whatever origin.
Yes. Hopefully, surgical grade steel.
Good old, what is it? I think it's 314 stainless. That's medical grade. Or maybe that's machining. 316 is a good one, though.
Yeah.
316.
What you doing?
So moving on before we go too far down that rabbit hole into what we're making. So Alex. So what we're making
said it,
this
not
week.
me.
I know. So let's see. This week I have been still the train keeps on rolling with production for Christmas. So Yahtzee boxes are all done on the CNC. I got all 120 of them finished, and I started cutting out all of the blanks for my dice D&D boxes, which will be the next thing on the CNC, which will start tomorrow. And then
how many pieces are those Yahtzee boxes?
What do you mean? Like,
well, is it just the box, or does it have like more dividers and stuff in there?
So it's the box, yeah, and inside I have a divider for each dice, and then a divider for the cards, and a section for a dry erase marker as well.
Okay, so it's more than just a straight up box. There's some more stuff going on in there.
Yeah, it's definitely a custom fit design, which was the whole purpose for me to make this custom fit item. So
is it just going to be straight wood for the inside? It's not going to be inlaid with any like felt stuff or anything like that?
Yeah, it's just straight. No, it's just straight wood for those boxes.
Gotcha.
Because I do include the dice, the cards, and the pen along with the scorecards. So it's all ready to go. It's not just like a box, then you fill it. So that way it's an easy gift item that people can buy and give to somebody as a holiday gift. The D&D boxes, though, I'm making, those I do put felt in because, people use fancy metal or glass dice, and you don't want them getting scuffed or anything like that. So.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
they're a much more selective crowd when it comes to the type of die they choose.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm this year I'm so excited because I made them last year, and last year I made a little some wooden blocks that fit the size of the felt that I needed to cut, and then I just used the X-Acto knife to go around. That's a lot of little pieces and a lot of X-Acto knife cutting to do.
Yeah.
So this year, now that I have the big laser, I'm going to just put the sheet of felt and have it cut it out. So I'm super excited. It's going to make all of that be super automated, which is going to be great.
I was going to say, you could at least get one of those fabric cutter type things where it's like some type of blade that at least gets like a long cut on there so that you're not just having to do each individual thing with an X-Acto knife.
Right.
But yeah, that sounds like it's a lot better way to do it with the laser. Do you have one of those... because I know I've seen them on CNCs before where it's like the attachment where you put like a utility knife blade on and it's like, you carve, it into leather or stuff like that. Have you ever done any of that? So
what you're describing is called a drag knife attachment.
Yes,
but
that's great.
Next Wave calls theirs the shark tooth, because the knife on the shark tooth. But it also will hold a pen. And so I did a whole video about painting with your CNC because I put a paintbrush in it and had it go around and pick up globs of paint and paint for me, which was really fun last year. So yeah, I do have that little attachment. I haven't used it for leather yet because now that I have the laser, I'll just use the laser.
Okay.
But the fun painting and pen aspect is really cool. And it's a really fun, I know it is a popular item. Next Wave sells them regularly, and actually IDC Woodcraft sells Next Wave's shark tooth as an attachment because it's a universal attachment. So you can just put it in anything with an ER20 collet, or a 1/4 inch collet. Yeah, it's a cool little device, and it's really inexpensive, which is great. But don't make the mistake. Make sure you have your spindle turned off. The first time I did it, and all of a sudden this thing went. I thought it was going to just completely destroy, but luckily I got it turned off quickly. But yeah, your spindle has to be turned off.
It's good to know.
Yeah, so Yahtzee boxes almost done. D&D dice boxes are next on CNC, and while I do all my round over routering and finish sanding and all that on the Yahtzee boxes. And then during the day, the laser will be running, and I'm making some more of the wooden notebooks because I started selling them and they're doing well. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have more for Christmas. So, so I made making some more of those. Yeah, so it's been a busy week, and I'll talk a little bit more about in Whatcha Breakin because it also means I've been putting some stress on some things. So,
with those notebooks, what kind of is it? Just regular like line paper for writing and whatnot, or do you use like a special type of paper?
I do use an ivory parchment paper because I think it looks really professional and like artistic. So because somebody who's buying this they're not going to be using these notes. I mean, I don't think they are going to be using it for just like notes on something. I imagine a lot of these wooden notebooks are used for like when somebody's playing D&D and wants they have their notes that they take throughout the session. Because those notebooks you usually keep after your sessions, so you can kind of like go back and look at all your notes and everything.
Okay.
So I'm like, it's a nice ivory parchment paper. So if somebody's using a quill and ink or something, it'll take that really nicely. So
is that just a bare sheet of paper then, or does that actually have lines already on it?
It's bare sheet.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And I buy it in bulk in like 1,000-page ream, and then I have to cut it down to size, which is literally, I mean, it's literally just cutting them in half. So but because I have a really cheap paper cutter, I can only do like 10 sheets at a time. So
how many sheets do you put in a booklet?
50.
Okay.
So, and then I have the book binding machine that does the hole punching in there too. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. What have you been making?
Oh, so I made the nightstand, the like the side table with like a double live edge, kind of like a C table.
Mm-hmm.
A round serving tray, so like just like a regular old circle off of long grain wood, not like an end grain cookie. And then a charcuterie board that had like one of the, kind of like generic little handles with a hole in it. So the nightstand, I really like the grain selection on that one because it is short nightstand. They wanted something that wasn't super tall, so it was only like 19 inches tall from floor to the top. And the top was live edge on one side, the other three sides were straight, and you have the sapwood on the live edge on the portion that like faces outward.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had a little shelf on the bottom that was integrated into the legs. And that one, it was dimensional, but I included the sapwood on the same side as the live edge sapwood that was on the top. So I had like a matching sapwood in there, because when I was doing the board selection from there, I knew that I was going to have sapwood on the top, but I wanted to complement that with some other sapwood in the piece, and because I had debated a few spots to put it, like, do I want to make some legs that have a little bit of sapwood in there? Do I want to have it a little bit like in the apron? But I ended up opting for the shelf on the bottom, which is only like 2 3/4 inches off of the ground, for that portion to have the sapwood, because of where it would be a lot more visible, and I think having the fact that it's on the same side with that sapwood provided a little bit of continuity and consistency, because having it on the apron itself, like, you don't see the apron very much, if at all, and with the legs, unless you're doing it on all of them the exact same way, it can be tricky to make it look nice. And so that's why, because like, I think the part that got me was that since that would be something that would be running vertically with the sapwood, that it would almost kind of clash with the horizontal sapwood on the top. So I was really happy with the design choice on that.
And this is all out of that walnut you had been milling, right?
Yeah, so this is for customers where it was from a walnut tree in their backyard that, like, their dad had planted so long ago before they had, gotten the house. So it was a very sentimental piece. And then the top piece of this nightstand, it had basically across the back portion of it, almost a little bit diagonally, was some nice crotch figure in there that they absolutely loved having there. And I got the ultimate compliment on there of, like, I don't want to set anything on it because I want to look at it and see it. So that made me feel really nice that they absolutely loved it, because their son, I had made a bench for like a couple weeks back, and they had gone over to his house before they had gotten their piece, and they had seen like the fit and the finish, and then he had been raving about like the level of workmanship and the quality of it, and so that kind of got them amped up for when they were going to get theirs. So that, like, it's always nice hearing that feedback that like the quality and the workmanship is something that they admire, and it's something that they actually notice. So that made me feel like all the warm fuzzies inside. So I very much enjoyed that. And then the other one that I made was, it was a C table, and that one had, again, it had live edges on the front portion. And that one, I spent a decent amount of time figuring out what I wanted to do with there, because that one needed to be a little bit wider. I guess, I don't know if deeper, because it was like going to be right next to a recliner. And so it needed to be like, from where the arm is going out, needed to be that width dimension. It needed to be a little bit bigger. So it was harder to get the proper piece of wood with figure as well as the live edge in there. Because they gave me a little bit more of an open canvas on that one in terms of like design choice and elements, whereas the other one they knew they wanted like the little shelf on the bottom and live edge on the front, on the top, and that stuff. Whereas this one, I had a lot more free reign, which sometimes can be more challenging because there's so many options to choose from. And so, because originally I was planning on doing almost like instead of a C shape, it was going to be like an I-beam kind of shape to balance out and kind of center it. But I played around with it a little bit, and it just seemed to make a lot more sense to have it shifted off to the sides so that the vertical stand that's tying those two top and bottom pieces together was closer into where the chair was. And so the top piece, it was about 1.5, 2 inches slimmer in width than the bottom piece. And I originally wanted the bottom piece to be on the top because of like the type of figure that was on there, but aesthetically having that be a little bit the slightly narrower one on top and then the slightly wider one on bottom just looked more balanced, because you kind of have that live edge tapering off, and then it kind of almost like it continued because the bottom one was a little bit further out, and so it looked a lot better that way, at least in my opinion. And I told him too that like you can flip this thing upside down and the live edge will be on the bottom side, and you can have it oriented that way and it'll be just fine because it goes all the way to the bottom for that bottom shelf portion with the second live edge piece. So, and I did have, those ones had crotch grain on those as well, like the vertical piece, and then the bottom piece had really big portions of crotch grain, and then the top piece, it had, on one of the dimensional sides opposite of the live edge, it had this portion of sapwood that kind of like kind of curled in on the about a quarter of that portion that kind of had some of those grayish purple colors in the sapwood. It looks really nice. And then it had a little bit of curl on the top of that as well. So there's a lot of hemming and hawing on my end about board selection and all of that stuff, because I'd also put the sideboard and the bottom board so that the crotch grain started in the corner where they touched together, and then it kind of spread from there. So there was a little bit of, I don't want to call it like a dynamic, almost moving aspect of it.
Nice. Yeah, some good feather.
Yeah. So that it kind of, it's got a little bit of flow to it. You hear about this when like people that like design cars, like they want it to look like it's moving even though it's just sitting in like the parking lot.
Yep.
You get people talking about the design aspect and the lines and all of that stuff. And then the circular serving tray that it was out of long grain. So that one I cut and was out of a portion. It had a little bit of feather crotch in it, and then on the other side of it, it had a knot that I had also filled in with some CA glue on some of those smaller cracks, and that one turned out pretty well. And those other pieces, all of the cracks that I had, because generally when you've got crotch grain, you're going to have cracks of some kind, because that's just going to happen. And so those were all filled in with black CA glue. And then the last one was the charcuterie board, which had a very, very large knot in the center of it that also had some spalting that was also filled in with black. That one had a lot more voids in it that needed to be filled. And so for both of those two pieces that I had mentioned, I did a lot of work with the jigsaw on those, which I have it's the battery powered Carvex from Festool that I used. So I used the circle jig to create the circle aspect of it. I was having a little bit of trouble with having the circle jig and the jigsaw like running on there and getting it to work properly. So what I did was I just drew the circle with that circle jig, and then I just followed the line with the jigsaw and basically freehanded it. And then I went through with my 90-degree sander to keep things straight. And I had drawn another circle that was like ever so slightly smaller, like an 1/8 inch inside of it, so I could tell as I was going through and sanding if I was removing too much material. And you could also feel it too when you've got that.
Yeah.
Because it's really helpful to have that 90-degree edge guide on that sander. It's the Festool version of that, which is a little bit pricey, but it's very, very nice to do because you won't get rounded over edges with that jig. And so I could feel as I was going over it when I had spots where it was like not following the curve quite as well. So I had to spend a little bit more time on certain spots and less on others, and make sure I got far deep enough to make sure that any of the cuts that I had that weren't quite as smooth ended up getting smoothed out, because the blade cut fairly clean. There was just a couple of times since I was freehanding it where, you know, sometimes you adjust or whatever, and then your blade tweaks just a little bit, and then you got to smooth that over with the sander. So overall, that ended up working well. And then I had a little bit more challenge with the jigsaw on the charcuterie board, because I was freehanding a lot of the lines that I was following, and I'll be honest, the initial lines that I drew and how I was able to cut close to them, because there's this little, like, plastic piece that you put on that's like a zero clearance kind of thing for the jigsaw blade, and that was kind of making it hard to see where the blade was, and so it was a little bit tough for me to follow my line on that one, because, like, you had turns left and right, whereas with, like, the circle jig, as long as you've got some reference points and you're following those, like, it's a continuous cut, so it's not really that big of a deal. Whereas with the turns and everything, you know, the inside and the outside edges of that stuff kind of are a little bit more difficult to follow when you can't see that blade quite as clearly. So I had to go back and shave off a couple areas and reshape a little bit to get the shape that I wanted out of that one. So that one was a little bit more challenging to get the aesthetic that I wanted for that board, but they did end up liking that one, so that ended up doing pretty well overall. So I'd say I'm pretty darn happy with everything that was a part of that order, because all of this stuff went to the same couple, minus the circle board that goes to like a slightly different relative. So I was just delivered to them because they were going to pick it up from him the next time they visit. So that's what I've been making.
Nice.
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it!
Lizard.
Whew.
So what have you been breaking?
So you put that lizard sound effect in there, and I haven't told you this because it literally just happened before I hopped on. My friend came back into the garage.
Oh, goody! I was
Yeah,
wondering.
Yeah. So for those who are not aware, I record in the garage space, which is not the primary shop space that I have. And so I had the snake that had snuck into the weather seal of the garage door, and I'd gotten him out, and he didn't drop in the bucket, and he got away. So before I got in here to record, I was getting everything set up, and when I turn around and look down, he's curled up maybe like 6 inches to a foot away from the edge of the garage door on one of the they've got the like 2x4s or whatever that are like standing on top of the ground that have like the ground contact to support the studs. And so he's coiled up there, and I had mentioned before I was a little bit reluctant to actually like grab him, because like I've handled garter snakes before when I was younger, and they make your hands smell like shit. Like,
oh yeah,
it smells terrible, and they will wrap their tail around you and poop on you, and it becomes a whole mess. And so it's like, I just don't want to get like, because and that smell stays like it does not come out easy. So that's why I don't want to like physically touch him, because I don't want to stink. So fortunately, I had some rubber gloves behind me, so like I quickly grabbed some rubber gloves, obviously set up my camera, as I'm trying to get this guy. And, like, he sees me moving around, and he starts going down this, like, itty-bitty hole between the concrete and the wood piece. But I still, I get a hand on him. And as I'm trying to get him out here, he's, like, flexing his body to, like, flare out, to, like, dig into the outside edges of this hole that he's getting into, which is, like, probably, like, the diameter of, like, maybe a nickel. So it's, like, perfectly fitting their body. And I'm trying to, like, pull back on him, but I don't want to hurt him because I got a little bit of the soft spot. Like, I don't want to kill him. Like, he's, you know, he's serving a purpose. Like, he's eating bugs and stuff around in the area. And after trying to remove him from there for, like, a couple of minutes, I just decided to let him go. And so he slithered into the hole. So now I at least know where to look to see where he is. So I'm contemplating putting something down around here that generates a little bit of heat that might attract him to, like, a more open area that I might actually be able to catch him and release him outside so that he can be happy and not in here to scare the shit out of me when he, like, slithers around for bugs or other food that he's trying to find. Because, like, I don't mind him, it's just, like, the jump scare of, like, seeing something where you're just, oh my god, what is that right there? Or, you know, something moving quickly where you're just like, what is that? So, that's... I did not break him or her.
Good.
I don't know if it's a girl or boy snake, I didn't check.
You didn't break them.
Yes. The they-them snake. So anyway, that's the one compilation story that will add to the tale. And other stuff that I have been breaking. So, if you guys remember, I was pouring some epoxy during the last episode onto a board, and I needed to do 2 pours. So I had done 1 pour before the episode started, and then I realized that I needed a second pour to, like, cover everything up. So let me just start out with this, because I've got the, like, I always have excess, because I use that to gauge, like, if stuff is dry, so I don't have to, like, poke around on the actual workpiece itself. So, for those looking on the screen, like, this is what's from the first pour. Like, pretty typical. I obviously did way too much. I ended up using, like, less than...
He's got a quart container there that's
yeah,
got
your
probably
normal, like,
a good inch of epoxy at the bottom.
Oh, it's at least 1.5 inches if you measure from the base.
There you go.
And because it's in the, you know, the generic mixing container that you see a lot of people do their epoxy in. This is the secondary pour.
Oh, I see a problem.
Yeah, it's a little lumpy. Looks like coal. Part of this was due to the fact that when I was spraying a little bit of heat on it, I got a little too much heat, and it started going...
A thermic reaction.
Yes, where it basically just like a runaway reaction. So it's like, it's all bubbly and stuff. But you can, like, yep, it's still tacky. So that was the problem that I had, was that it was tacky. But I didn't use the, because I use a map gas torch on that. And so I didn't use it nearly as much on the board, because, like, this runaway reaction started happening on this before I started applying more heat to the actual board itself. So, like, okay, I should not add any more heat, and it should be fine. So this had been sitting for a couple of days because I was working on other stuff, and it's like, I'll just let that cure. I'll get to it last, because then I know it'll be absolutely rock solid. So when I go to get it, and I touch the top, it's still tacky. And I was like, oh my god, like, what is going on here? And I'm not, like, I don't use epoxy a whole bunch. A lot of times when I fill small cracks, I use the black Starbond CA glue. I'm just accustomed to it. I've used it a lot. A lot of times that is adequate for what I need to fill in terms of cracks. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I deal with this tacky epoxy on my board? And it's like super late at night, and you know how it is, where it's like you just want to get through something, so you ignore all logical, solutions.
Yep.
And of course, you don't Google anything, because why would you find a solution that would, take you 15 seconds to read when you could just potentially screw up the entire thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the first thing that I do is try and I hit a little heat on it to see if that does anything, and that does absolutely nothing for me. And then I peeled a little bit of the caulking back that I had done, because I had done a double bead of caulk, one around the border that I had wanted to fill, and then a secondary one in case stuff overflowed, and it did overflow.
Yeah.
So I tried multiple things at that point. I tried getting out the Rotex and sanding that down, because I'm like, you know what? It's going to be gummy, it's going to gum with the sandpaper, but I think I can get it to remove it. And it didn't work so hot. What it did is it essentially lifted up a lip of it, and then I was able to essentially I just peeled that layer off.
Yep.
Almost entirely. Not quite all the way, but mostly. But there was still tacky stuff around.
It was probably a combination of the heat, but also maybe you didn't quite mix. Maybe the glob wasn't mixed properly.
Yeah, I'll get to what I believe to be the the issue.
Sit back and wait.
Yeah, I've got a whole production of this story. So I'm still trying to remove, I try and remove the biggest chunks that I can with some gloves, and I am still able to, I get a good portion of it, maybe a third to maybe half of it, but the rest of it's still there. So I try and hit it with the Rotex again to be like, all right, I just want to get it off, and it's still having trouble. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, I've got a gummy substance. I need to get it to be not gummy so that either I can sand it off or I can shove it through the planer and get it removed that way. So the first thought that pops in my head is, okay, when people are machining rubber, they freeze it or get to a really low temperature, so then it's much more rigid. I was like, I don't have time to freeze this. That would take too long. So I was like, okay, what else can I use to shore this up and make it more rigid? So I get out a bunch of thin CA glue, and I just spritz the crap out of that thing with this thin CA glue, because since it's thin, it should penetrate everything. And then I was just spraying the crap out of it with accelerator. So much so that I had to put on my full face mask respirator, because as people know who have worked with CA glue, that will start making your eyes water, and there is an odor to it. I've got my full face mask respirator on. It's got the basically filter almost everything out cartridges on there, so I'm not smelling anything, and I am just going to town on this thing. And I used what are those little bottles? Are they 4 ounces or something like that?
The little bottles are 2 ounces.
Yeah, 2 ounces. I went through probably 2 of those.
Oh, jeez, man.
I have I buy it in bulk, so I have a large container that I buy it from, and then I top off the smaller ones.
I don't know if that makes it better.
It is slightly better. Yeah. So anyway, so this is not the way to do it, but this is how I'm gonna figure it out and just full send on it. So I cover the crap out of it with the CA glue, and it hardens up nicely. I'm testing all the different spots, tapping on it to make sure that it's all solid, and it seems to be all good to go. So I start running it through the planer, and I was like, this could go okay or this could go poorly. So I run it through the planer, and it's doing fine. I do notice that I am starting to get some plane tracks. So I don't know if there might be some sticky stuff gummed up on the blades or something like that, but it's not too terrible. overall.
Right.
Like, I'm still getting decent enough of results to it, and I plane it down far enough that I remove enough material that I don't need very much additional CA glue, because I was like, I'm not going back to epoxy, I don't have time for that. And at that point, I didn't know what my problem was, so I was like, I'm not going to even try to attempt that. And so I filled it with the black CA glue. It was very tedious. It was almost like doing it entirely with CA glue from the beginning, but it was not the most ergonomic, or not ergonomic, the most well thought out way to do it, but I got it completed.
So between the epoxy and the cost of the 2 bottles of CA glue and all the
I'm not even
accelerator...
gonna think about it. Just don't tell me. Just don't tell me. I needed to have it done and out of my hair. You live and you learn.
Yep.
So, and then, you know, of course I sand everything up and it's good to go. And then one of the other troubles that I start having with this is, because I've got the kind of curving shapes, and it kind of like goes to like a circle handle and things on the outside, like sanding the outside edges.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh crap, I gotta sand these, and these are not gonna be simple, because like the circle serving tray is easy. You don't have any type of curves or whatever getting in the way, no obstructions. Whereas this one, you can only go in so far with the sander before it hits and it starts sanding super funny. So there's a couple of spots that I can't get to with my normal sanding setup with the right angle attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a spindle sander, and I was able to get some of that, but for the life of me, I could not find any of the other paper or any of the other sandpaper that I knew that I had for it other than the 80 grit. So I'm just like, oh, okay. So I'm just going to have to do 80 grit on this. And naturally, I didn't hook up the dust collection because I was too impatient, and that would be, you know, too easy.
Yeah, and smart and safe and
everything. Because I'm basically just on the warpath at this point. Like, repercussions are of no consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did get the spindles to work on there and sand what I needed to, and I eventually got there with the charcuterie board. So that was probably the most difficult piece, and it was the last piece that I had done of that complete order that had given me the most grief out of all of them. Probably the next most annoying one was the nightstand, because I had a couple of issues with that one. I did a lot better with the glue up on that one than I did on the bench, with it being a very similar design, where I was able to clamp it down during the glue up, so it was much easier to access those like little inside edges where the apron meets the legs.
Mm-hmm.
So that was better. But one issue that I ran into, that I had done, or that I had came across during the dry fit, was, for whatever reason, some of the tops of those legs, like 2 of them, were just like at like 2 degrees off, and I have no idea when that happened, because I could have swore that I had done all of my... Usually when I have a piece, I'll leave it with whatever shape is on the end of that through the process of sending it through the planer and milling, and then I'll come back through and then I'll cut it to size. And usually what I do is I cut just enough to square it off on both ends before I decide on which end is going to be the end that I end up using, because sometimes when you cut into those ends, you know, you find a super small knot that makes it weird, and then you got to cut off a little bit more. So anyway, I was off by like 2 degrees or whatever in a weird direction. So I had to touch that up, and I had already cut my domino holes at that point. So I was like, oh my god, I could throw this off really bad and screw myself horribly. But fortunately, it did okay, and it did fine in the dry fit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the stage at which I attached the top to the base that I ran into issues. So I have these little, like, they're kind of like little right angle metal brackets that I screw in. I had used the exact same ones on the bench that I had done. No problems. Like, the second screw that I try and put on here, screw pops off. Like, the head just pops off.
Oh,
The
I
screw
hate
is
when that
embedded in the thing.
happens. Zinc?
I don't know, because like I had the exact same set before, so I don't know what the issue was, and so like the first one I was like, oh okay, like maybe I was going too aggressive with it, and then I put a little bit of wax on the screw thread. 'Cause that's generally what they have you do when you're using like a softer metal type screw, is you put some wax on the thread to help ease it in there, and it slides in better. I tear off the head of another screw. And I'm like, oh my god, why? So I had done the screws on the apron first, and then I did the usually I'll set the top on there after I have put the screws on there, and then I start drilling the holes in with the placement, because I generally do like relative dimensioning. Like I try to go off of that just because everything is like one-off pieces. It's fine to do relative dimensioning on some of those things. And so I step up the drill bit size a little bit larger, because I think I was originally using like a 16th, and then I bumped up to like a 3/32 or something like that. So it was slightly larger, and so I was like, okay. I increased the hole size. I put a little a little bit of wax on the thread. I snap off another screw head. I'm like,
Oh, no.
God damn it! And at this point, like, I've already put the screw into the apron, so like that's already there, and so I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to change and then drill 2 more screw holes, so I like angle it a little bit so that it's like missing the metal screw that's embedded in the side of this apron now, and I try it again, snaps off in there again, so then I gotta rotate it to the other side. And then I finally get that one, and like I was looking at the wood on this,
5?
it ended up being half of the screws that I put in there that like snapped off. Like,
Oh no!
yeah, there were several of them that required 3 tries in order to get the screw in there. Like if you look at the underside, it's not as pretty as it could be.
Was this on the same day that you did the whole epoxy stuff too?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this is a lesson. This is a lesson that I've learned the hard way, and I want to partake
I didn't
onto
have
you.
time. I didn't have time to pause and come back to it later. I just had to push through.
Leave the shop for the rest of the day.
No, I just did not have time, because like I had other stuff happening, because I think I had mentioned last week that the forecast had changed and I couldn't use my router sled outside, so I had to do router sled stuff when I was anticipating like glue ups being glued up and then
Right.
Needing to dry and then doing it while those are drying, and so that kind of screwed with my timeline. And this whole like epoxy thing, like that added like at least 4 hours to what I was needing to do. So yeah, I like that was very disheartening, because it was just so annoying. So I actually already have some different brackets picked out that are a little bit different, that allow for better wood movement through the seasons. Because these ones are okay, they're just not the best for that stuff.
And don't buy those bits again. Or don't buy those screws again.
Well, it was like a screw bracket set kind of thing. So it's like,
full set. Okay. If it came as a set, it's definitely zinc.
Yeah. So anyway, and I also checked on there, like, I was like, I'm not like drilling into like, because you know sometimes when you get figured wood, you get some like areas that are like really really dense, or other areas that are not nearly as dense. Because like if you're drilling into like the crotch and it doesn't have cracks in it, like that's going to be a lot more dense. But I was drilling into what was essentially like either rift or quarter sawn walnut, so it should have been just fine. And one other thing that may have been a slight issue was if I wasn't drilling in far enough and then the screw was getting to the end and it couldn't axially drive it in further, it puts more stress as you're trying to torque it in more. But I made sure to drill further in on some of the subsequent ones, because like that was the thing that I had observed probably in the first two that I thought I was probably doing wrong. So yeah. And then with the C table, not nearly as bad, but still a little bit annoying and challenging, was the glue up for that one, because you want to get like a nice 90-degree, it's a very clean like seam that's very, very easily seen. Because of the sizes that I was working with, I couldn't do a miter at each of those seams, so it was like a butt joint essentially. I think that's the right term for it.
I think so.
Yeah, so the problem with that one was that in order to get like the proper internal 90 degrees with like the framing square that I was setting it up to, I was getting this little gap on the opposite side of the board that was like maybe a 30-second, maybe a little bit bigger. Not bad, but noticeable. The one glue joint that I had on the top piece was like perfect. Like it was solid, it was great, no issues there. And like I couldn't for the life of me. I was like, well, I did flatten this on the router sled, and then I needed to come through with several of the lower growths. I go down to like 40 grit all the way up to my finishing sanding, which is typically 220. And so I was like, generally I keep it pretty darn flat. But there are some undulations that you can get in there that can provide a few gaps. So what I had discovered was, since I had used the right angle sanding attachment on the charcuterie board, one thing that I noticed when I was like getting it set up to get started working on that is that the mark to get it at 90 degrees was like slightly off, so it was actually set at 91 degrees. So all of the edge sanding that I had done on the pieces for that C table, it was just off by 1 degree, enough to add a little bit of a gap in there, especially since this is thicker stock. Like you're talking 1 3/8 inch thick. So there's a little bit of a distance there that it can compound over. And so I was like, okay, that's probably my issue. And so what I did, which was, it kind of worked, was I just ended up going back through and just filling in glue in that empty crack area just so that it would dry and it would be consistent on color. So fortunately it was in like probably the least seen glue line that you would have for that particular piece. So it was okay, but it was like I aim to have like basically perfect glue lines. Like that's what I strive for, because it's just so clean and it looks great. Like the top glue line was perfect, absolutely loved it. But that bottom one was, it just wasn't doing it for me. So, I was able to fix it and make it aesthetically fine, but I would have rather, avoided that entire process if at all possible. Because dealing with excess glue and squeeze out, I like to wipe it clean with cloths when I'm dealing with it, because I like to have extra glue in my squeeze out, because it's better to have extra than less, which I learned when I took the barstool course with Mark Spagnolo earlier in the year in July, and I was rushing to catch up on one portion of the course, and I was trying to save a little bit of time and make it so I didn't have as much glue cleanup, and I didn't put enough glue, and when I was sitting in the chair, it ended up breaking because I didn't put enough glue in there. So, like, I've overcompensated since then. And this is also a plug for his course because he's got that course available now, and it's a pretty darn good course. He has made adjustments since then because of my fat ass breaking it. So it's thicker now. It was like 1-inch stock, but now it's like maybe like 1.5-inch stock. So some of my pictures might make its way into the.
For those who don't remember,
course.
Alex made this stool and then brought it home and immediately sat on it and broke his stool.
While I was trying to do, like, the Basic Instinct leg crossing over video of it.
Yep.
But the unfortunate thing was, like, I had already done that, and then I was trying to get, like, just, like, pictures, and I did not get myself breaking it, like, in video.
In the
and
moment,
I was so
yeah.
disappointed. Because all I got was a picture of me, like, right before it broke, and then one after where I was, like, on the ground, like, knees up, arms crossed, just, like, looking back at it, like, God damn it broke that thing that I spent all of the last 3 days building. Which I was not, like, I didn't have really, like, a place for it. Like, it was just gonna kind of, like, be in the shop as, like, a stool, so I wasn't super heartbroken about it, because it wasn't, like, my goal was not to have a stool at the end of it. My goal was to learn several techniques in building it, so I wasn't, like,
Absolutely.
I wasn't devastated. I was still defeated, though.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I overdo it on the glue, is to make sure that I have proper squeeze out, because I've had that break. So yeah, that's the very long-winded answer of what I've been breaking. It was
kidding.
a week. It was a week.
That was the longest breaking segment that we've ever had so far.
And probably some of my, like, worst things that I had to deal with.
Well, mine is somewhat simple compared to all of yours. It's funny because we did the whole CNC episode last week, and Jay even asked, he goes, have you broken bits? Do you think it's because of your mistake or from wear and tear? And I said, I've never broken a bit because of wear and tear. Well, I broke 2 bits this week because of wear and tear, which I was like, what the hell? But I didn't do anything different. They just broke on their own during the middle of running, but they definitely had hours and hours on each of them, because I'm trying to use up my older bits first now that I've cleaned them all and they work nice before I start on some fresh ones.
I can't remember. Did you do the ultrasonic cleaning thing that everyone's been doing lately?
Oh yeah, it's so nice.
Gotcha.
So it was funny that the week after that conversation, I immediately break a couple of 1/4-inch bits from just regular wear and tear. And then today, I was all excited. So my wife is out camping with some friends for, like, her book club. It went camping this weekend. So I've got the house to myself all weekend. And I'm like, I'm going to just be in the wood shop, no distractions, no, I have to come in and, cook or anything, because I do a lot of the cooking in the household. And so I'm like, I'm just going to do my thing. I go out there this morning, I flip on the bandsaw, flip on the dust collector. I get a couple of cuts into the bandsaw, and I start smelling smoke. And I'm like, uh-oh. And it's not just smoke, it's electrical fire smoke.
Oh, yeah, that distinct smell. I know that smell very well.
Yeah. And so I'm like, shit, what's going on here? And I look over, and the control panel for my dust collector is literally melting.
Reminds me, one of the things that I did with the epoxy was when I was hitting it with flames, it was on fire for a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But
I didn't. Here, I'll let you finish, because I never went into the what I had found out was the issue with the epoxy. So you finish, and then I'll jump back in.
Okay. So I immediately shut all the power down and slowly wheeled the thing over to the front, just to, if I had to, like, pitch it out the front of the garage, I could if I needed to. But I took the panel off, and because it hadn't melted like full on, but I could still get the screws out and move it. And as soon as I opened it up, it was like all the wires are gone. The capacitor inside had burst and was that was the part that was melting everything because all the goo inside the capacitor was out melting.
Oh yeah, yeah. Capacitors are usually the culprit when you've got a motor that's failing. That's usually the failure point in that system.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, I got it off of Facebook Marketplace 3 years ago for $50. Old
brand?
Delta.
Oh, okay.
From the 80s dust collector. So like I knew it was a temporary thing anyway, but it was like, man. So now I went and I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna waste the rest of my weekend because I don't have a dust collector, and I'm the kind of guy like I don't want to just make. My shop is dusty enough. I don't need to make more dust in it. So I'm
also,
like, you know
all
what?
I envision on this is the Twilight Zone of the guy in the library where he's got all his books and then the glasses fall off and he like steps on them and breaks them. There was time! Like
Yes,
you had the
exactly.
perfect, you had time and then just something breaks and it ruins everything.
Exactly. So I was like, screw this. I'm not going to wait to order a new dust collector and go and do it. So I was like, I'm just going to go to Harbor Freight and I'm just going to go buy a dust collector from Harbor Freight.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought the new, I guess it only came out like 4 months ago. They have a new canister filter.
Yep.
Big, it's a 2 horsepower dust collector. And it's really, I'm impressed with, it's a lot bigger. I'd say
when
it's
that
like
came out, I really wanted to replace what I had with it if it dies at any point. Because for those who can see behind my head, the secondary dust collector that I have, it's basically the exact same thing. It's from Wen, but it only has the cloth top. It's not the cartridge, which the cartridge filters out smaller particulates.
Yep.
And
it's got
much better.
The cartridge
I think it's got
has
an extra half horsepower.
It does, and the cartridge has a little thing in it that you basically twist the top of the cartridge, and it
you got like the
knocks
paddle
all
to
the
clean off
dust.
it cleans all the pleats.
So that was pretty cool. And then it also, so my biggest complaint with the old Delta style is that the collection bag below is a ratchet strap, and I hate getting it back on. So this is actually a friction fit. Like there's just this band that you basically wrap the bag around and then you friction fit it up into the bottom section. It makes changing the bag super easy. Like I pulled it off and on.
Does it go on the inside with that friction fit, or does it go on the outside?
Inside.
Okay, yeah, because the Jet dust collector that I have that's in the primary shot, it has a it's a reusable it's a cloth reusable collection bag, and it's sewn into it is like a metal band like that. So you press it in, set it in there, and then it pops back out. So it's very similar to what you're describing, and it can be a little bit tricky at times because the one that I have, you've got to press the metal band in for it. It's not the friction fit like what you're doing. So it stays really, really secure, but it's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes to remove it. So that was one thing that I was also interested in, was the ease of changing the bag that comes with that dust collector you got.
And that's one of the big keys for me, and why I was like, all right, you know what, I am just going to spend the money, because it's with the 2-year warranty, extra warranty, so it's 4 years total. It was $500, which I didn't want to drop today on something. Luckily I had it from a recent some sales and stuff, but I was just like, dang it, I did not want to do that. But what I do like is I already started looking on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube University. There's some people who have already started adding a metal bucket below instead of the bag. And so I've seen some build videos on how to do that. So I'm going to look at doing that, because I really just want to unclick a bucket, dump the bucket, clip it back on. I'd really like not to deal with the bag. Before I was going to go buy the Harbor Freight, I was like, all right, let me go look at Grizzly and see what, because they're here in Washington. They'll get to me in 2 days. They did just release a really cool new dust extractor. It's basically like a workbench. it's the bottom section of the workbench. You have a top wooden thing so you can, be working on it, or you could have your planer and everything on it. But underneath, it's like, it basically looks like the Harvey Gyro 7, but just not as cool looking. It's just a square. But it's got that same canister pop out thing and everything. And it looks really cool, but it's a couple grand. I'm not going to, I needed
honestly,
it today.
For the price of that dust collector, it's hard to beat.
Right. And with a 4-year, if
it.
anything happens, I can just go bring it in and swap it out with a new one. So, which is nice.
So it's a good option, especially if you don't have like, it can handle a decent amount of stuff. But it can be a little bit dicey if you try and run multiple machines on it. But if you're a one-person shop, it's more than adequate. You're only running one machine at a time, generally speaking.
Generally, I mean, they advertise it as a 2-machine system because it pulls 650 cubic inches per minute or whatever. But
is it really that seems low? Interesting.
Or I don't remember. Whatever they advertised it as a 2-machine thing, and it comes with a splitter. I'm only, again, one shop. I'm only going to use it with one thing at a time. So
yeah, I only use a splitter just because it's easier to switch between machines, because you can
that's what I do too. Yep.
Below my shoulder, the splitter, because it's like that when I run to the drum sander, and then the other one I run to the table saw that I have in here when I actually do occasionally use the table saw in here.
Yep. My only complaint about it is that, just like yours back there, the actual motor is on the bottom, which means the button is the on and off buttons down there. And I'm like, oh, that's stupid. Like, give me at least a button on top or something that's easy. Like, it's bad sounds. There's a lot of older people in our woodworking world, and a lot of us don't want to bend over to turn on the dust collector. So it's just laziness, but for people who have mobility issues.
You can get essentially an inline switch, so like your switch stays on, but it's plugged in between the cord and the wall.
Yeah.
That you can do a switch of some kind. Like, obviously you got to get something that can handle the amount of amperage that you need on a daily basis.
And speaking of that, because my old system was only a 3/4 horsepower, I did not realize the amperage difference. And I knew there was going to be some difference, but I turned it on and I immediately fried the power strip it was plugged into.
Did that make a smell too?
No, but it definitely made a large spark. And then nothing would turn on it again, so I had to pull that.
It's 110, right?
It is 110, but it's the almost full 15 amps. So
yeah,
I think it's pulling 12 amps, and so it's that only leaves.
I bet it's pulling circuit 15 for a 2 horsepower. I bet it probably
it had a chart.
Usually there's a little thing on there, because I could have swore that mine are maybe 13 amps or something like that. But it wouldn't be out of the question if it was running 15 amps to get that extra half horsepower from what I have. Mine's only 1.5 and yours being 2. Yeah, but only a little bit of power from somewhere.
Proves that my shop still has not enough power outlets in it, and I need to figure something out eventually.
Maybe you should have a sleepover with He-Man and he can give you some power.
Man, I need some power. Anyway, so all right, that's my section. But before we move on to our what we're watching, what did you figure out your epoxy?
Okay, so I had just happened to be scrolling through stories on Instagram, and Brittany Carbone it was some post, and it was something about sending good vibes or something like that, and I was like, I could totally use that because I completely butchered an epoxy pour, and she she asked some questions, and through that conversation, it was basically it likely did not get mixed properly. And looking back at it, because I poured that and mixed it together while we were recording the last episode, and I had wanted to put the India ink in there that I had, which is makes it black. I put it in right away, so that I could mix it and get it all mixed in nice and thoroughly so that I could save time. And I think what had probably happened was that because I did not mix it before putting in the dye, is that I did not see everything get mixed properly, because there's the little bit of that difference in
The
tint
viscosity.
from the hardener to the resin that you can actually see. And so I think that was probably my downfall, is adding in the pigment before mixing it and like physically seeing that everything like looks good. Because I think I was because it was not like a deep pour epoxy. I think I had it in my head that, like, obviously, like, the working time is a little bit less, so I was like trying to make sure that I was not up against that working time, and I went on the other end of the spectrum, and I did not mix it nearly enough. So I think that seems to be the culprit here, was that I did not do enough mixing. And the other thing too is that when you do mix, you need to go slow enough that you're not getting that cavitation behind whatever your mixer is, because if you go fast enough, that opens up, and that opens up enough of a space for air bubbles to actually get reintroduced into your resin, making it more challenging to get out the bubbles when you do actually pour your resin. So yeah, and that's why you should probably hit up Brittany on the service that she offers with helping with epoxy pours, which I was already late at night, and there was no way that she was awake at the same time that I was, especially since she's on the East Coast. Because she was like, "You should have hit me up for this," and I was like, "You would have not been up," and I was on a time constraint, and it just would not have happened. Otherwise, I probably would have. I probably would have actually Googled some of the things that I should have figured out before then, because she was like, "Oh yeah, with that kind of thing, you use some like some type of like solvents that you can use to kind of help dissolve the epoxy that has not been properly mixed, to take it off, instead of doing what I did and wasting a bunch of CA glue to harden it and then mill it down and either dull or gum up my blades in my planer." So yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
Just real quick for selling, because I know, Alex, you don't have anything this week. At least you didn't add any notes. But my CNC files are still doing well. I think that's going to be the case right now, because everybody's getting ready for the holidays, so they're buying files to make, which is great. So if you do sell CNC files or have thought about it, this is the time of season to get your files uploaded. So I would recommend that. And then I did a one table market yesterday, so last night, and this was, I would never do this market on my own if I had found it and been signed up for it, because it was an art walk, and it was in a hotel, and it's just it doesn't meet any of my personal requirements of what I would do for a market. And so but it was one of the hosts of it was one of my retail partners. So I was like, okay, I'm there to support you. I'm not there to make money. I'm there to support you, and I'll sell my stuff. And it was a free market, so it's not like I was out a booth fee, but I was out $20 for parking, and I made $32 for the 3 hours that I was there. So I made $12, which,
How far away was it from your place?
15 minutes. Like, it's not.
Okay,
it wasn't
so that's
that far.
Not bad.
No,
I didn't. If you were like a couple hours away, that would have sucked.
But what sucked was, I think we had 25 people come through the whole area. Yeah, it was just dismal, dead. My two sales were from other vendors. So, yeah, it's definitely not something I'll do again. But I was like, I do, and this is, if people ask about, keeping vendor relationships going, and we can have a whole discussion about this another time. I always make sure that at least once a year I'll do an event that I know is benefiting my retail partner and not necessarily benefiting myself. So like I went down to Astoria to do the art walk, which was really great, but it was not, I wasn't there selling anything extra. I was just there to be her artist in the shop that night. And so that was great. or this week, which was just there to basically fill a table because they didn't. I mean, there was 15 tables and there were only 7 vendors that showed up too. So that was a whole other bit of it too. So yeah, it was just, so I make sure that I like to support my vendor people and know that, and know that I'm there to support them, but it helps grow my relationship with them. But yeah, anyways, that was what we're selling. So let's talk about what we're watching.
Somebody's watching me. It's my anxiety.
We don't get a copyright strike for that, do we?
I don't know. Do we with all our notices? Well, anyways,
I'm not big on YouTube, so I wouldn't know. I know those are questions to ask.
I think it's under a certain amount of seconds, as long as it's not longer than like 3 seconds or something like that. Anyway, so let's. Justin at Call Me Maybe released a new Maker documentary combo about our the Maker's Cass. She runs Bad Ace Toolworks and Sass and Solder.
Toolworks.
Sorry, Bad Axe. Thank you.
Yes.
And Sass and Solder. She does a combination of hand tool woodworking and stained glass art and is incredible. It was a really good documentary. So I love all of Justin's video documentaries. It's great to learn about people that I don't know much about. And so, and it's, great for the maker community. So great job, Justin, and keep them up and hit me up. No. Let's see. Pete Squared 23. So Pete cut a giant spectrograph jig. So think a spectrograph think about those, what you used to use with colored pencils, where you'd put your colored pencil in a hole.
Yeah, the paper plate.
Right, and it would go around in a gear and it would make this little cool spectrograph. Well, he made a giant version of that out of acrylic to use as a router jig. And then he literally just used his plunge router and went around this. It was painted black on top, and so then it was coming through as the wood underneath, and just made a giant spectrograph that way. It was really cool. So something something we did as kids, and you take it and make it a bigger thing. So that was really neat. Sold Out Supply, Sold Out Dot Supply, did an instant burner, but used this crazy 8-bit style flower inlay. So think of like a picture of flowers, converted it into 8-bit, and then so you have those little tiny squares, and so each square is a different type of wood. Yeah, he pixelated it. So each square is different types of wood to make up the pixels, and it was some really pretty flowers, and it just looked gorgeous. I was really impressed. I've got a couple more. Harris Wood Shop did a small basement tour video of their basement shop. I was really impressed. This is one of the best small shop tours I've seen, because I was really impressed about how well organized everything is. There's a good flow, but even just like his bottles of finishing glue were really well organized, and how he has things on shelves. And I was really impressed. So it was really well done. Let's see. The Woodworking GPT did a recap of creating his daughter's nursery. He's been doing this for, I want to think it's like a 6-month build, but he released this recap video of it on Instagram. It's the reel showing you all of the build real quick. The nursery is bomb. Like, it's got this really cool lighting system. He broke out some of the walls to make it wider so they'd have more space, because it's in an attic. So it's think of that top, like arch top of a house.
Yeah, you got the profile of the roof.
Yeah, and so they broke out some of the rafter walls to make more space in the nursery. But just a great build. I was really impressed. And then finally, Barstow posted their Harlequin coffee table. Built it from 3 different varieties of walnut and then oak boar pens. It's a classy coffee table. If you know the Harlequin style, it's gorgeous. I was really impressed. I like it, and I'm saying really impressed a lot tonight apparently, but yeah, it was really well done. So great job, guys. Alex.
Okay. So the first one that I have is from Craig at CT Fine Furniture. So he had this little side table that it's not quite Kumiko, but it's very similar, where it's got all these like geometric shapes. It's a very similar color, and then he has this like one of those geometric shapes is a button that you press on, and then it like slides down to the other side to like reveal a compartment. And he shows the mechanism inside to make that happen, and I just love that opening mechanism, that like all the stuff that he put in together to make that happen. Because I think the last episode there was like a reel that I had that like showed a bunch of different like latches that you could make, and this one was like a step up from that, where it's not only like you've got latching mechanisms, but you've also got like the sliding mechanism for like the side of the apron that like slides down to expose the area. So it's, you know, very, very well put together and just looks awesome in general, even if it didn't have that special compartment on it. Next one that I have is Lauren at the Wild Marigold Art. So they have this mosaic picture frame as essentially the backdrop, and then they have this dragon that's on top of that. I always forget the difference between Intarsia and what the other scroll saw art is. But anyway, so it's got this like gold and white color from the tone of the wings, and then the essentially the arms that like support the wings. Because like if you think of like a little bat, where it's like their arms, and they've got like the skin that like is the surface area of the wing. It's kind of like that, where you've got that kind of two-tone color on there, and then just this light add of pink flowers that go around this dragon. And I just love the color selection that they have for this. It just looks very, very nice and well put together and well thought out. So overall, it just looks very beautiful. Next one that I have is Aaron at Moon Over Maine. So they had I can't remember if it was a cutting board. I think it was a cutting board that had the laser engraved, like handwritten recipe of someone in the family, which it's something that we've seen before, but it's just nice to see some of those well-made ones pop up and surface, just to remind you that that's like a thing that can be done, that is I don't want to say that's like it's easy, but it's a fairly straightforward thing when you're taking that image of that hand-drawn, or not hand-drawn, but written out recipe, and getting it put onto that cutting board or whatever surface. That's just so much fun to be able to pass down that history in a family. And then the last one that I have, Pete at Petrie's Workshop, he was doing a recreation of another reel where it was just like the epitome of needing to do stuff in your shop, where it's like, all right, so I got to do this thing to do that thing, and then move this out of the way to get to that, and then I got to finish doing this thing so then I can access that tool. And he's like adding on, because in the original video it was like a car guy, like a mechanic going through stuff, and each frame, when they changed the camera, the guy was like adding another cigarette to his hand. So Pete just like added some like veggie straws to his hand, each individual frame. So that was just funny, because it just hit home so hard with doing stuff in the shop, where it's like, yes, some of this stuff sounds easy, but when you've got to like do one thing to move another, to access a different machine, and the order of operations of like, from someone who is not in your shop, thinking like, why are you taking so long to do this? Like, it should be fine. It shouldn't take that long. It's like, well, sometimes there's a lot more moving parts going on that need to happen in order to get everything done or to completion to a certain level that you want. So yeah, that one hit home pretty hard.
To infinity
and beyond.
All right. This week's main topic is all about kids in the workshop. So let's get out our chainsaws.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
Alex, take it away.
I
You're
almost forgot
the
about
one
that.
with a kid here.
Yeah, so for reference, my son is 9 years old, so some of what I'm talking about is more related to the context of him. So we have done several projects together in the shop. Some of them have just been kind of like shop jig type things. Other items have been actual pieces that we made and like submitted for 4-H and other stuff. So kind of like, because I put together my shop when he was about, maybe 6 years old. So where I kind of started with that one was, at least with him, for that age and under, so like in that 10 and under age, and of course this depends on how your kid develops and how well they are acclimated to, stuff in the shop, and even if they have an interest in the shop or not. Is what I have told him is that if you are going to be in the shop, Dad needs to be with you, because I need to be there to supervise stuff, and I also tell him that you need to be, like, you need to have the same amount of protection on that I need to have on. So basically what I tell him is like, all right, if I am wearing shoes and safety glasses, you gotta have your shoes on and safety glasses on. If I've got a mask on, you've gotta have a mask on. Very much an easy, like, monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. So those are kind of like the two primary rules that I have for him.
Does he get excited to come and hang out with you in the shop? Is he at that age that he likes it, or is he like, eh?
He's off and on, like, where he'll want to be in the shop. Like, he will occasionally pop his head in just to see what I'm doing. And generally, like, if I'm working on something and he'll, like, open the door and just kind of, like, pop his head in, usually I'll see him, because the size of the shop is pretty easy for me to notice when the door is open. So usually I'll either, like, wave him off if I'm in the middle of something where I've got, like, a mask and everything and he doesn't have it on quite yet, or I'll walk over to him after I've shut down the machine and talk to him and see what he needs, because sometimes he just needs something, or other times he's just asking what I'm doing and interested in it.
Right.
Because some of the, like, and this kind of divides it up on just getting them acclimated to the shop, just so that they know what's going on in there, because part of it is, if they are a very curious kid, they're probably going to find their way into the shop and figure out, like, what does this do? What does that do? And so structuring it in a way that you're with them when they're in that kind of exploratory phase of figuring out what this shop is like and what everything does, so I can show him, like, I will turn on a machine to show him when this turns on and that turns off, so that he knows what buttons are and what they do. So instead of him popping his head in and maybe trying to, like, flip a switch and see what it does and potentially having issues, like, I have been there with him when that machine is turned on, so he knows, like, this is what this does, this is what turns on, this is where the moving part is going to be. I mean, for the most part, like, I wouldn't say that my shop is, like, a huge safety hazard, but there's things where it's like, if you turn on the bandsaw, like, the bandsaw blade is exposed, right?
Right.
Or if you've got, a drill that's got a drill bit in it, and they press the button on there to get it going, or whatever, like, when there is a machine that's spinning some type of sharp edge, which is a lot of what woodworking is, especially if you're in a power tool shop, that can accelerate an issue happening. And if you show them what that is, that answers that question of curiosity of what that machine does, and so there's not quite that level of intrigue anymore because they haven't seen what it is. Like, that's the allure of pressing the big red button, is what does it do? right?
Right.
So if you let them press the big red button while you're there to supervise them so they see what it is, and then they get to experience that, and then that's answer that question, and then it's no longer a attraction to them if they happen to go into the shop when you're not there and they don't follow that rule. Because, I mean, that can be something that can happen, is that they can slip into the shop. It just kind of depends on if, like, doors are locked or where your shop is and what kind of access you have to it. Is a lot of that. There's a few variables that go into that. But like I said, I'll show him those tools, whether it's one that I will have him use or not, just so that he's aware of what it is and what it does, and how to be safe around it. And then there's the tools that I will actually let him use and the level of supervision that I feel comfortable having with him. Like, if it's a scenario where, like, I need to be hands with him in case he slips or whatever. Because, like, one thing that I'll do is, if it's something where I control the speed of the drill bit, like, on and off, and he's the one that is pressing the drill in as it's drilling the holes in there. You're able to let them experience it and do it without exposing them to more than what they're ready for at whatever age. Because, like, another thing that I'll do with him with some of the hand tools that I have, he helped me with a project a while ago where I was adding dog holes to my bench, and I used an auger and brace for that. And he saw me doing that, and he was intrigued, and he wanted to try it. And so, like, I kind of, like, held the brace in the orientation, and then I let him kind of crank it. So a brace is just like a hand-powered drill, for those who are unaware. And he got to experience that, and then he, got worn out a little bit, and then his curiosity was kind of flamed out, and then he went back to doing something else for a while. And that's the other thing, too, is that if you are doing a project with them, they are going to lose interest at some point, depending on what the age is, and you're going to just be prepared for them to, like, kind of peace out for a little bit and then come back in and just be, like, micromanagers of the project of you're doing the majority of the work. Like I did as a kid when we had, like, a garden with my mom, where, like, I would occasionally come in and, like, water the garden or whatever, but then I'd get distracted by something else, and it kind of became my mom's responsibility to tend to the garden, even though I was using it for 4-H projects. So just kind of leveling those expectations to make sure that that, like, they might be there for only a portion of whatever project, and you'll be doing the rest of it, as a lot of parents probably know from lots of arts and crafts activities. And it doesn't even have to be a project per se. It could just be doing stuff in the shop that's fun, or they could just be watching you in the shop, and they've got, they're sitting on a stool, and they've got, if they need to have safety glasses and ear protection, or if it's something where you're just marking out lines and there's no, issue there, and they're just watching you work. Sometimes that's enough for them, where they just like to see what's going on. Like, that, they're just curious, and they want to see what's happening. Like, they don't have to necessarily be building a project with you. Sometimes it's just the quality time that they like, and seeing what, Dad does in the shop when he's down there, when he's not saying naughty words.
My friend Kara from And East, she has a bucket of scraps, and her son, who he just went into kindergarten, so I don't know the aging around.
That's probably around 5 years old, maybe 4.
But he likes to go out in the shop, and he'll play with the bin of scraps and use it like playing with blocks, and he'll build things with build a tower and that kind of stuff with it. So
sand stuff up. Yep. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that, like, if you have scraps, you can, kids love drilling holes. They love, hitting nails in with a hammer. Like, if you just want to clamp a piece of scrap wood into a vise and let them hammer nails into it, or use a spokeshave on it and make some shavings with it, like, that's fun for them, and it doesn't even have to be anything that ends up being an actual finished product of any kind. Like,
right.
Sometimes the fun of it is just doing something and using the machine, because that's part of the fun, and so it can be as simple as that. But if you do opt to do a project, what you can do is you can kind of divide it up based on what you think the operations they can help with, or ones that you feel comfortable doing with them. Like if you are, for one of the picture frames that I did with my son, we did it out of a solid piece of wood, so it was just a single piece. And one of the things that we needed to do was drill holes on the inside face, cut it out with a jigsaw, and then go back through with a router to clean up the edges. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to have him go back through with a router and clean up the edges, because even I feel a little bit uneasy about doing that. So I'm not even going to have him there, because that just adds a layer of, potential issues. So I didn't have him do that. But drilling the holes, yeah, we drill those holes together. Having his hands on my hands as we are working the jigsaw to cut between those holes to get that piece of waste out of the center works perfectly fine, because it doesn't have to be a straight line. It doesn't have to be super exact. And then I haven't had him do very much on the sanding side of things, because it can be, sometimes it can be a little bit iffy, but putting on the finish, like I usually use wipe-on finishes, so it's usually not a very big deal to do the wipe-on finishes, because it's not usually a film finish where you have to like build and resand and build. So it's a fairly simple process, and I've gone through it enough that I can help him through that process, and I can kind of touch up things after the fact to wipe off some of the excess to make sure that everything is good to go. But he can wipe on the finish and put that on there, and he's done a decent portion of that particular project and done just fine. Some of the other projects that I've done with them was a couple of the lumber storage racks, where basically all we were doing together was drilling in the screws, and that's all that he was helping do, was drill in screws for putting pieces together. And he liked doing that for a little bit. Once he got his fill, he pieced out, and then I was doing stuff for a while, and then he popped back in and ended up doing a couple more. And I was completely fine with that, because I kind of had my expectations in a line that he would probably quote unquote help for a little bit, as we all know kids help and make projects go slower with their help.
Oh yeah.
But that's the fun of it for them, is that they get to experience it.
Well, and it makes memories for you too. Like, those are times you never get back with your kids. So
yeah, there's the between the frustrations of trying to get stuff to end up properly to whatever end result you want, the help that you get along the way, that may add a few steps in between. There's a good amount of enjoyment that you can have in that time. And even if they aren't actively wanting to be involved in the process of making something, they can still be involved, because kids have just a large amount of imagination when it comes to things that they want to make, or things that they might want to have. Because like my son last week, he's got this idea that he wants to have a little desk in his room for some of his stuff, like his Legos and other things. And so he started kind of sketching out on a piece of paper, kind of what he was looking at and about the size that he wanted. And so even if you're just going through the design process with them, where they're drawing out what they want, I mean, if they want something and you tell them, all right, draw this for me and explain it to me, you probably won't get very much out of it, but the process of them drawing out and trying to explain what it is they want is a very valuable skill to develop, of being able to try and draw out and convey the message of what is it they want for an end result. And there might be a little bit of back and forth there to figure out what they mean, and you might need to refine their drawings a little bit to confirm dimensions or sizes or stuff like that. So it might be a little bit challenging depending on how detailed they are with that explanation, which my son is very, very detailed and has like everything figured out. He's a clone of myself. He really is. And I thank my parents for their patience every day. And so, you know, I try to indulge his curiosity as much as I'm able to do. And there are times, too, where I'll tell him, like, all right, well, Daddy's got to finish up this other stuff, but we can get back to this tomorrow or the other day because it might take a little bit more time for me to, like, finish out what I'm working on and then have the headspace to figure out what he's wanting to have made and kind of figure it out. Because sometimes, like, and you can honestly make anything, and even if it's not very useful, the fun of building and making something, they're going to thoroughly enjoy that. Because, like, something that we made, this was very, very early on when I had first gotten a shop together and I was still doing mostly hand tool stuff. We had a bunch of these, like, scrap boards. I think they might have been from a pallet or something like that. And we had a bunch of them. And, like, he wanted to build a box of some kind. And so we made this, like, weird rectangular box out of pallet wood. And it was like the worst construction ever. And I'm still surprised to this day that it's still around. Because it was like some kind of oak. And like we used it to like hold his shoes and stuff. So it was like, think of like, I don't know, like a 12-inch to 18-inch long board that's about 6 inches wide, maybe 4 inches. So we paired 2 of those together for each side of this thing. So like left and right, front and back. And we put a board behind those in between and nailed those together so that those would stay together. And then we did the same thing with 2 boards like on the bottom, and they like stick out on the lip and everything like that. And we nailed that together. And then we flipped it over, put the bottom on it, and then just nailed through those to secure it. And then it was basically like an open top. And like this thing, like, gaps out the wazoo. The stuff wasn't even like plain because it was fresh off of the pallet. And it was cupped and everything like that. And then we ended up turning it into like basically like a flower pot for growing green beans, which is not a very good use of this wood because it started warping even worse. But it still stayed together even with like, we just put it together with nails.
Nice.
And he, you know, it's still around surprisingly. And it's just kind of like a fun reminder of that time that we like just kind of put something together on a whim, and it's still kind of around.
Absolutely.
And if you don't feel like doing a open-ended project that, you know, has design aspects of it that still need to be figured out and whatnot, you can always get craft kits and put them together in the shop, even if it is something that doesn't really require a lot of tools in the shop. Like if it's like, I don't recommend getting the dollar store like birch wood birdhouse thing because the directions on it were terrible and it went together horribly. And it was very difficult to keep it together when it was like glued. Like it was supposed to be like an easy put together, and it was anything but. But then he like painted it after the fact, and he had a lot of fun with it. So, you can do those things in the shop, even if it is an activity that doesn't really require the shop. Just because you can use the workbench as a working surface, and it just gets them accustomed to doing stuff in that space, and they get familiar with it, so that they feel comfortable in it. And so there's no like they've figured it out enough that there's not as much like curiosity to pry into stuff, and there's also not a hesitance to do it where they're like scared of it because they've never been there and it's intimidating, because you can bring down that barrier of intimidation by just having them do something simple in the shop where it's like as simple as just watching you, or they have like a coloring book with them, or they're just watching their show and you happen to be in the shop. It all ends up working out just fine to expose them to the shop in whatever way that they feel comfortable, even if they don't want to, like they don't ever have any intention of building anything, sometimes planting that seed of something will sprout later on in life where they were like, oh yeah, my dad or mom or whatever was building stuff in the shop all the time, and now I kind of want to try, some of that stuff, because I've heard of many a story of makers who were like, their dad was handy and built stuff, and they never really had an interest in it, and then after they got into their 20s or 30s, they kind of wanted to explore it, maybe as a way to reconnect with their parents because they wanted to experience the hobby that their parent had, and then they end up enjoying it as well. So sometimes you may not see dividends right away, but it might be something that they show as an interest later on in life. Because I had mentioned the gardening with my mom when I was younger, and we'd do stuff that we would grow for 4-H and submit it, and we were always terrible with entries on that, where it was tough to get above a red ribbon, which is you're doing okay, but it could be better kind of ranking. But the fun of doing that with my mom, and it kind of bringing back the memories, I enjoy gardening to this day, and doing stuff in the garden, and weeding, and doing all sorts of stuff outside. And so that's something that I have continued to enjoy doing, because it wasn't something that I was that was one of my core interests when I was a little kid, but it's something that I enjoy doing now, because you had that exposure when you were younger, and then you like to come back to it because whether it's nostalgia or reconnecting with something that you did with your parents when you were younger yourself. So even if it doesn't
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just filling
Sorry.
in. You can fill in.
I was gonna say it's interesting as you're saying about this, and picking it up from other makers who have said, my dad did this or my grandpa did this, and it's interesting because I would say our generation, some of Gen X, but mostly I'd say the millennial generation, is the first generation that is going back to trade skills as hobbies and makers and doing things where 3 generations ago, and our grandfathers or great grandparents, it was your trade because that was your job. It wasn't a hobby. It was you were a carpenter because
that's what you had to do.
You had to do stuff.
That was your line of work.
Right. Or you were living on a ranch and you had to build, and fix stuff that were on the ranch. So it wasn't just a hobby, it was just a way of life. And I would say our generation really is that first generation, because a lot of us grew up on computers or grew up in a technological world, that we're going back to these trade skills as hobbies and as things to do to get, I know that's how I started. I started because I work on a computer all day and I wanted to do something tangible with my hands.
Yep.
And so it was definitely a way of getting back to that. And I think the next generation, so your son's generation, really it's going to be interesting to see how they do that too, because you've got, are they going to be nostalgic for that same thing? And actually trade skills are on the rise right now, which is really great because we need them. They've been on the decline for so long, and a lot of Gen Z is going into the trade, which is great because that's actually been always my recommendation. So my wife and I were foster parents for 3 years, and my recommendation to a lot of kids, and when we met older kids, were always, look at trade, look at a trade school, because there's not a lot of people doing it. They pay really, really well. It's not as expensive as going to college. If you're going to to be a fitter or for plumbing and stuff like that, to going to a trade school is a lot less expensive foot in the door, and then that your return on investment's a lot higher. So, it's really interesting to see how, as you said, you're giving that exposure to these kids, and then we have nostalgia for spending time with our parents or a loved one in the garage or in a shop. And I think that is something that we need to continue to foster each generation going forward, the more technologically advanced we continue to get, which is important because we can't lose we can't lose these skills because that's what built this world.
Right, yeah, because, I mean, you hit the nail on the head of we've never had so many jobs in the line of work be so digitized that there is so much less tangible things that we do that like, it seems pretty apparent that there's a craving for that tangible aspect of something that is real and tactile. And I do know that, I mean, there's a lot of, when it comes to exposure to electronics and other things, where, like, for kids, like, they will get bombarded with, you know, whether it's ads or other stuff, where, like, they, and this is me kind of summarizing some other stuff that I've seen from others, is that there are so many of those, you know, advertisements and pushing products in those spaces because there are eyeballs there, that they can crave a more authentic experience that you can honestly sometimes only get through in-person experience. And so, you know, sometimes that can be actually making something tangible, and building something. And, you know, there is something to be said of even the most simple of things you can be very proud of that you have made. Because, like, recently my son, he put together a Lego kit that was from Harry Potter, where it's the, for anyone who is very much into Harry Potter, like my wife and myself, the Fantastic Beasts book that is part of the third, it's in the third movie. It's a book that is basically acts like an animal, and so it's a Lego recreation of that. And then they found a kit that, like, lights up and makes sounds and things that you add to this Lego kit. And so, like, there was some frustration that he had. We were getting stuff together. There was a sensor that you've got a Hall effect sensor that reads when a magnet is close, and that can act as a non-contact switch, and he was having some trouble with that, and I did end up helping him with it. But he is so proud of that thing, and he loves showing it off, showing it to grandparents. And so there is, it can be difficult with electronic things to be able to show off that work of what you have done and what you have created. And so when you do have a project that does produce a tangible item at the end of it, that really embodies all of the work that you put into it, where you can physically show someone something that you yourself are very, very proud of. And, you know, I think I had mentioned that a few of those, like the picture frame and some other things that Peter and I had made together, that he is, like, you know, he can point to that and be like, yeah, we made that. And sometimes he'll, like, ask, like, oh, hey, can we make a few more of these chopsticks? And it's like, oh, yeah, sure, when we get around to it, yeah, we can make a few more of these. So sometimes, even if it is a simple project that you guys have made together, sometimes they'll come back to that project just because they've learned that and they love the experience of building something, so they might build that item a couple of times, even if it's something that's super simple, like the chopsticks that we made, where it's like, it's honestly not that difficult of a project. I mean, you can make it more complex if you want, but it's something that more or less he can almost do all of it. And sometimes honing in on a particular skill, even if it isn't woodworking or other stuff, if it's because he'll even do, our son will do, he's done some looming with my wife that they have done together, and that is a very repetitive process that is kind of like a just like a little bit of a soothing process that you go through, where it's like you get something at the end of what you've made. He's also done some other projects too, where it's like these little it's like a little like pixel art type thing. I can't remember the name of it, but they're like these little half circle like bead things that are like, I don't know, maybe like a 16th of an inch by 16th of an inch, and it's like basically color in the numbers, but with these little bead things that you press down that like stick, and then you like iron it on and whatever. So he's enjoyed doing a lot of those crafts and other things that he's made, whether it's come from a kit that's already been kind of pre-designed, or if it's something that we do together that is, you know, a very open-ended project where we don't know where it'll go, and we may not know what the end result may be, and it may not be something that is super high-end or something that I would necessarily like want to have as a product, but it's special because we made it together, and like you said, it's that symbol of that memory, that experience that you guys were able to experience together.
Nice.
Good news, everyone.
So, starting to wrap up the show here, as far as news and events next week. So actually, from when this podcast, if you're listening to the day it airs, which is on Wednesdays, Texas Woodworking Fest is 2 days from now. So it's going to be on September 12th, 13th, and 14th. The 12th is the creator event, or the content creation, and then the actual show is the 13th and 14th. So if you guys are in Austin, Texas, come on by and say hi. I'll be there, and there will be a whole bunch of us. I
think they would prefer that you say howdy or hey y'all down there.
That's true. Howdy, y'all.
The proper way to address y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you're in town or if you're at the convention, make sure to stop by, say hi. I will have stickers for the show that I will be handing out. And because of that, because I will be traveling, and because Alex probably doesn't want to just talk to himself on the screen, we are going to take a... Well, that's true. We're going to take a break, so no podcast on September 17th. We'll be back the following week.
Yep. And then, let's see. I mean, it's not like super maker news, but it's kind of adjacent, especially for those who do a little bit more content creation. So this, I think probably by the time that this will air, they'll have done the like fall release of like new Apple products, which is just like a little refresh on like, iPhones and a couple of other accessories, which I use my AirPod Pro 2 all the time when I'm in the shop. They're okay for like noise cancellation up to a certain level, which is about where I am with my tool, so it's okay, but like I'll probably upgrade to the next version of that. And so that's just something to be aware of, is the media that we make and record is usually done via smartphone, and so sometimes it's nice seeing the upgraded model, because not always is it the like, oh, you had last year's models and you're going to upgrade every year. Sometimes it's, you've had your phone for a few years and they have advanced a little bit more when it comes to cameras and everything like that, that it's enticing to upgrade at that point to have something that runs a little bit better resolution and better battery life, and maybe a little bit more storage, as we all are probably terrible about deleting old videos and pictures that we probably don't need anymore. Probably
Absolutely
a lot of screenshots too.
Oh yeah, my screenshot folder is bursting. And finally, Maker Camp is coming up. So for those who will be going and traveling to the East Coast, up in the Catskill Mountain Range, Maker Camp is October 10th through the 13th. Sadly, neither Alex or I will be there this year, but we wish everybody the best of luck, and no rain. No rain.
Yes. Well, at least not a torrential downpour. A little bit of rain is okay, but a monsoon is frowned upon.
Yes, always frowned upon. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and just remember,
in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.